Welcome back to From Corporate to Cashflow. We are Andrea Cannon and Liz Schwab, two pharmacists navigating the process of building time and financial freedom through real estate investing and lending while working our day jobs. Navigating the journey is difficult, but our podcast guests are experts in showing us how it's done. And today we have Paul Brown here with us today. Paul, thanks so much for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, Paul, excited to hear more about your story here. Would love to get a little bit of background on you. What were you originally doing, and then how did you transition into real estate, and what are you focusing on now?
Yeah, great question, Liz. I'll try to be as short as I can because I spent decades in a W-2 job. I was originally in robotics and engineering. I went through construction engineering. I went through a number of things, grad school, a bank, insurance company, and ended up my last career. I spent maybe 15 years at the end of my career, the end of the 25-ish years. So I guess the second half in Asia, most of it in Japan, part of it in Singapore, running international underwriting portfolios for a company. And the last number of years there were really just because my kids were in a really good spot. My wife was in a good spot. I didn't really enjoy my job at all. Maybe some of your audience might appreciate the feeling of it's a pretty good job. It was a better job than I ever thought I'd have when I was a young guy, right? Um, but it wasn't the thing that I really wanted to wake up and do every day with my life. But it funded my family to be happy and things were working out. So it dragged on a little bit longer until all my kids were kind of in a place. They said, all right, I'm pulling the plug on this. And obviously the biggest key, my wife said, yeah, you can pull the plug on this, right? Um, and I quit my job, was treated thankfully really well exiting. So it gave me a little cushion for a while with the intent of coming back to America and getting fully involved in investing in real estate. I'd always invested in real estate on the side, really loved it, had a mom, an amazing mother that was in real estate when I was young and like created a passion in me. But I came back and I ended up not really investing in hardly any real estate. I ended up doing completely different things in the real estate industry sphere.
Okay. But what do you, so that makes sense up until this point, right? And maybe your transition away from that W-2.
Yeah.
What are you focusing on now, though, within real estate?
Yeah. Excuse me for the asthma.
Oh, you're fine.
So when I came back, I thought I'd do real estate. I did like 1031 a property into some, short-term rental and messed around a little bit. Somebody called me up one day and said, hey, will you loan $89,000 to this dude in second position on a fix and flip? And I knew absolutely nothing. I'd worked for a mortgage bank. I've built lending products, but I've never lent money. As dumb as that sounds, like I'm not sure how you can do one and not the other, but I figured out how to be that bonehead. So my first response was, yeah, this is Paul Brown. You called the wrong person.
Ah,
And then he said, no, I meant to call you. I said, why'd you call me? I don't know what you're talking about. And so this long conversation of him explaining the deal and then me saying, well, how much is he willing to pay? Like, I don't even know what I'm doing at all. Like zero, right? I probably would have not instantly thought I need a promissory note. Like I was that bad, right? And the guy needed money for 90 days and the only person offering him money wanted 40% flat.
Oof.
And I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, that's criminal, isn't it? And so we ended up negotiating a lower rate than that. He was happy. I had no idea what I was freaking doing. And that deal, thankfully, it paid off. That deal triggered me going, oh, this is kind of cool. This like resonates with me. And so I just started doing more deals and started a lending business, like
Mhm.
accidentally started a lending business. And then I started another one with some partners that didn't really work. And then I started the one that I run now, which is Real Quick Funds. And that one was started on the basis of um, leveraging other people's money and also sharing the gains with them via a proper SEC fund. So it was started kind of together. I mean, not actually together, but based on knowing I would start a debt fund. That debt fund would let investors come in, share in the profits, but that capital would let me lend. So I
Hmm.
wasn't just playing with my house money and being that limited. So that's kind of where that journey took me. And that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. And it's been a really wild ride. And recently we started the third business with a different partner, which is a debt recovery business. And that's mainly because I had debts that were late and overdue, and I needed somebody to help me deal with that so it wasn't taking on my mind space. And one of your prior guests, Becca Brown, has a brilliant husband with a ton of experience in this, and he had been helping me. And so we finally, after some amount of time, decided, hey, let's make this into an actual company and start helping other private money lenders take that off their plate and help them recover the things that they're struggling with. So those are
Yeah,
kind of the three: a fund, a lending business, and then debt recovery, kind
absolutely.
of tied
So
together.
yeah, and it's funny how you said you accidentally got into it. And to your point, it's important who you know, right? Because that individual came to you because you're in real estate and you're like, well, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's so funny you say that because when I first became introduced to lending and someone was like, second position, I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? What's second position? And then I was like, what the heck's a promissory note? It's just like everything sounds like foreign language until you dig deeper into it. And I think I would love to unpack this more as we get further in the conversation is like the potential implications of like not knowing certain things. Like, oh, you probably need a promissory note, or like you need to understand the first position, second position, right? Or you need to understand that you might not get paid back, which goes into your, debt collection business. So I just think it's so interesting how people get pulled into certain directions. And obviously, you've created three different businesses through this, which is great. So,
And you're right, Liz. It's all people too,
yep,
right? I can thank that guy for accidentally getting me into lending, right? And
right,
he
right.
texted me today. We stay in touch. He's a realtor that helps people house hack in Utah. He's fantastic at it. It's really awesome what he does. But I look back on my career. Sorry to talk W-2 for a quick second, but I can trace, I don't want to say the number of digits, but a lot of digits of my income over my career to two people, right? Those two people took my career from one trajectory to a completely different
Mm,
place. You do that a couple of times and you're in a different world, right? And I think the entrepreneurial world is that on steroids,
mm,
right? Somebody can completely change the path of your company or the possibilities you have, just that one person, their connections, their generosity. And people are so generous in real estate. That's the other
yeah,
thing I love. There's competition, but there's a whole lot more just generous sharing,
right.
right?
Yeah,
I don't know
completely
if you
agree.
found the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, especially because you hear all the time, like, or not all the time. You would hope you hear it all the time, but the collaboration over competition, right? So I truly believe, obviously, that you can go higher and further and have much greater reach with collaboration, right? It sounds corny, but I truly think it's true,
Mhm.
right? So I think that's a great philosophy. So it's always nice to see where people go and like you linking up with Becca and then creating this business and like with the debt and just it's so funny to me how everyone just somehow ends up connecting and then you just like expand and expand. So that's very exciting. I did want to ask you a quick question before we get too far into the conversation. Can you help the listeners and viewers understand what a fund actually is? Because this
Mm.
may be a newer concept. We may have heard of lending in a private money lending capacity, but how does a fund come into play for all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I'm not an attorney and can't give legal advice, and I'll be wrong about everything I say, but this is my view. A fund is just a way of legally pooling investors' money so that you can then go invest it in something else. So if I just personally call up 10 rich friends and say, hey, will you send me 500 grand each? And they all send me 500 grand. And I take that 5 million and I go invest it in, Andrea's hiking video company, right? Videos are awesome, Andrea. Um, if I did that, I'm illegally trading in securities. I'm breaking the law. You can't pool people's money and go invest it in something else. You need to be licensed and you need to go through proper steps with the SEC. So a fund we use that word really loosely, like a hedge fund or whatever. So a hedge fund would be they've legally created a pool that they can collect money in, and they invest in public securities. They buy stocks and bonds on the market. That's a hedge fund. A private equity fund does the same thing, but they buy private equity, private companies, equity positions in private companies, whole private companies, right? So each one of these like funds we talk about are just different. They're buying different things with the pool. And mine is a private credit fund. We colloquially say debt fund, but it's using the pool to issue debt, to loan money. And
Okay,
that's what
perfect.
I'm allowed to do in mine, the way it's structured.
Yeah, I think it's important for everyone to understand that there are a lot of rules, laws, regulations that go into all of this, right? And so while something may sound interesting or like, hey, that's a good return, it's always you want to work with credible people that have a history and that are doing it correctly and lawfully. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. And then touching base on the W-2, I know you mentioned before that you transitioned, you're making good money, but at the end of the day, you're like, is this like my end game here, right? How has that transition been for you?
Wow, you almost have me speechless. Virtually nothing that I expected,
Mm,
right?
hmm.
So, and I don't know how to say this correctly, but I'm going to sound really snotty in how I say this, but my W-2, I had done okay, and I'd got myself in a pretty comfortable position. And sometimes you can be in a position where lots of things around you tend to work for however you want them to work, right? Lots of people around you, kind of everything works the way you want because you're fortunate enough to be in a certain position. And you can get kind of lazy and a little bit like soft. And
Yeah.
I got really soft, not realizing how soft I was getting over time because there was always somebody that did everything, right? And so when you leave that like soft space and you jump out as an entrepreneur, I don't want to make this sound scarier than it is, but like you're all on your own, right? You like walk out into the wilderness with a pocket knife and, a little bit of plastic tarp. And that's really different than your five-star hotel was,
Yeah.
right? With a butler standing at your door going and getting you stuff. So that was a bit of a shock to me. I knew, like, I kind of expected it, but like every single thing that needs to get done, you're doing. And then there's the challenge for me, at least, there's been the growth challenge of when is it appropriate to spend expense money on a person
Mm.
to buy back some of my time in that thing. And it's been like starting from zero, to be honest, in a really fun way.
That's
So
awesome.
it's kind of like going all the way to I just got out of high school kind of thing. None of my experience matters. It doesn't count for crap. My resume doesn't count for anything. Nobody's investing in me because I worked at some place. Well, that's a lie. I have some people that worked with me that called me and have invested, but essentially, right? Nobody cares about my resume. With lending, I don't succeed or fail because of any of those years. It's all like what you build from that first day. And it has been so much fun, but also so much stress,
Mm.
right? Because it's probably the folks that watch your channel, and you guys know this really well from being engaged in a sales side of a business as well to some extent. People that are in sales for their career maybe understand it better
Mhm.
because they have to go out and hunt every day. And if you stop hunting, you stop eating.
Yeah.
And I think that's how the entrepreneur journey is. You hunt every day. If you don't hunt, you don't eat. The slight difference for me is you don't just hunt, but you have to start thinking through where's that herd going to be over the next month, the next quarter, the next year? What do I need to do to make sure I can hunt next month? that I can hunt better next month? What tools do I have to change? How do I have to relocate where I'm at against the herd? You're kind of strategically thinking, and you have to like get up and hunt.
Yeah.
Nobody's hunting for you. And
Yeah.
that's been like really wild for me. It's been super fun, but like I don't want to lie or skew it. There are days that I just feel completely overwhelmed and just think, yeah, I need to like leave with my dog for a while. I need to walk away, you
Yeah,
know.
I've seen those. There's like memes or reels or posts on social media about how you wanted to quit your 9 to 5 and you finally did and you picked up a 24/7, and that kind of gives the what you're talking about right here, right? Is because people are like, oh, I'm going to be able to like work when I want to, which turns into so many people needing to do 10 times more than they were doing in their whatever job they had prior to that. And
Right. That's so true. That's so true. And if you guys don't mind me adding maybe a touch on to that, back to something Liz said about people and relationships,
mhm.
I wish I would have learned sooner the value of other people that I was working with. Not There's lots of amazing people that have blessed my journey, but if I wish I would have learned sooner the right way to date and marry people that I'm going to work with
I see.
on things. Not jump in too soon, not be too slow, don't put dating off. Using the analogy, the partners that have been built over the last couple of years for me, particularly the last year, have changed my journey completely, right? Doing it alone is not twice as hard as doing it with a partner. It's about 10 times harder,
Wow. I mean, that's,
in my opinion.
and you've highlighted nicely that people have played an instrumental role both in your W 2 and in your current business ventures. And I mean, I think that's a really good point is those partners can really make or break you, and finding them, identifying them, cutting ties when it's not the right fit, figuring out the process when it is to make sure you're able to move forward and capitalize on that. Just wow, that's really solid advice right there. I appreciate that. I want to go back to something that you mentioned about your second position loan and just getting called up. What was your original intention? You left your W 2 and you wanted to do real estate, but it doesn't sound like you wanted to do lending. Did you want to do buy and hold? And then have you been doing any of that since then, or did you just decide not to do it at
Yeah.
all?
So I had done some buy and hold. I just had a handful of residential properties, but like ultimately, I'm a bit of a math nerd, and commercial property is more of a math game, right? Residential property is all about like, do I love the home? And if more people love it, it's worth more. But commercial is, does it make freaking money? And what's the net present value of the money it makes kind of thing, right? It's just a math problem. So I'll admit I have a little fondness for commercial because there's no fuzzy stuff in it, as much. So I intended to buy multifamily. Like I was fully down the multifamily. I love multifamily. I'll do it one day. But as I was going down that multifamily track, I just took a 90-degree turn right off of the road into the lending field. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And ultimately, for me, my passion is building business. It
Mhm.
was in my W 2 as well. I loved going into places. I was fortunate enough to a number of times be able to go into businesses or segments or products that were not succeeding and be able to help them end up in a better spot. And to me, that's fun. Building and growing. The reason I didn't like the end of my career was I was in something that was stable, and
Yeah.
a stable, like managing a stable business is my kryptonite. I'd just as soon jump off the Empire State Building as manage a stable business, right? Everybody's different. Like our personalities are different, and that's just mine. So every day I just was like going crazy. I could feel myself going crazy over that time. So thankful to my kids for letting me drag them across an ocean to another continent while they were in high school. My baby two ended up moving with my oldest two escaped the journey.
That's Awesome. So you mentioned you did a second position loan as your first lending deal. We've had a couple other guests on here that are also lenders. Some are doing first position, some are doing second position. So I just want to hear a little bit more. Maybe this is the listener's first episode. Would you mind explaining what first position versus second position is? And then for your fund, are you doing which one? And tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to use a really traditional definition, if you don't mind. Typically, when you're borrowing money for anything, a commercial transaction, anything, the super generalized capital stack, the stacking up of money, starts with somebody is the first person to lend money is a primary lender or first position lender, senior debt holder, or whatever you want to call them. And if things go bad, they get paid first. So if the whole deal goes sideways, then it starts paying from the bottom of the stack. These guys get the first money. Usually then there's another position, we'll call it second position. It also gets called mezzanine layer all the time because it's kind of in the middle. And if there's enough money left over, they start getting paid, right? And usually the top is equity. The last people to get paid are equity partners. That might be your own equity that you put in the deal,
Okay.
right? So if this was a fix and flip and it was $100,000 and you borrowed 70 from one person and 20 from another and put 10 of your own in, then it'd be 70 in first position, 20 in second, 10 in equity.
Mhm.
If it sells for 95, equity takes the hit, right? 95 pays, you lose 5 because it's your equity. And that's the reason why I don't do equity partnerships hardly ever.
Okay.
So what I think the certain communities call, is it PMP or something? Anyway, there's an acronym that's been made up for it recently in some YouTube communities. I don't do equity deals because I don't like being last in the capital stack,
Yeah, that makes sense.
right? I like having, first of all, I like being earlier.
Mhm.
So I'll be in second, but I also like having a legal recourse. And if you're equity, you can't ever complain you didn't get your money back
Right.
unless there was fraud or something, right?
Sure.
But when I don't get my money back, I can go after them if I
Mhm.
wanted to, right? There's a legal process I can go through because they owe me. So sorry to get off track, but
No, that's
first
helpful.
position safe. First
Mhm.
positions where you make nice, safe returns and you never call me at, not me, but actually Kiefer at North Peak Recovery, our recovery business, because you don't have those problems. Second position, you call us all the time because you have fix and flippers 4 months late and you don't know what the crap to do, right? And equity, you just cry because there's nobody to call. And if you lost your money, you just cry and you move on, right? And you go to the next deal and you win big. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And so for your fund specifically, are you doing first position? Are you doing the second position and beyond? Or are there
Yeah.
transactional funding? What are you doing in that space?
So we don't do first. And the reason we don't do first is our fund pays our investors more money than first position makes. So if we did first, we'd kind of be in an upside down situation. We do second position. We're really tight on our underwriting, but you still can't predict the future. So sometimes debts go wrong. And then we do transactional. We'll do the double close for the wholesaler. We'll do a stack method, also known as a Morby method for creative people. We'll do EMD when we're asked. We particularly like commercial EMD though, when somebody comes for like $100,000 EMD rather than like 1,500 EMD. We'll do both, but the 1,500 is a little less cost effective for them. That's what the fund does. So second position and transactional type things. Not all of those are legally transactional, but we call them that. That's the space that we play in for the fund. So that's the thesis of the fund. And investors know that's where their money's going. They know it's going into those risk profiles.
Yeah, super curious because obviously you've been involved with first position, second position. Maybe you did the other ones later and decided you didn't want anything to do with them. EMD, like transactional. Do you have a favorite or a preference that you lean towards?
Yeah. At first, I love second, not because it's like it's the riskiest, right? It's the
Uh-huh.
riskiest, but I really enjoyed what you're doing. You're really making a project happen that otherwise maybe isn't happening.
Hmm.
People are usually coming to me on second. Our rates are not cheap. they're usually
Hmm.
coming to us on second with 4 days left to closing, and they have this really good flip. They're a fix and flipper, right? They have this really good deal, but they just don't have cash to make it happen. And I like the fact that you can be part of making something happen,
Right.
facilitating a transaction. That lady, that guy is going to hopefully make a ton of money off of it. There's all sorts of fun things, right? It's also really risky. And so, therefore, we have a debt recovery business. Um, I would say the thing that I maybe think is the most fun transaction right now, even though we do them the least because of how many there are, is the stack type deal, the mortgage method. And a lot of that's because you have to make sure it's the right borrower, that your ethics align with their ethics. There's a lot of room in that transaction to do things that maybe we wouldn't agree with and wouldn't think it's the
Hmm.
right thing to do. Ultimately, in the end, a seller ends up carrying a second position loan. We have a
Hmm.
special place in our heart for understanding how risky a second position loan is.
Yeah. Right.
So we like that deal to be treated a certain way and the seller to be educated a certain way to make sure that we're not putting somebody in a position most lenders would never choose to put themselves, right? There's very
Right.
few position lenders out there. But we really like those. We like that stack or that Morby method deal, but we love them all. I mean, they're all really good. I'll
Yeah.
go back and correct two things I said. One, we do first position sometimes, but it's usually when somebody calls me on Monday and needs money on Thursday. We
Fair.
do not charge first position rates for these weird deals. So therefore it can actually fund the system, right? And the other thing is I say second position because I've taught myself not to say subordinate because for some reason that word doesn't seem to work amongst a certain segment of our industry. you know, People know it as gap or second, but we've done positions all the way to eighth. I've had a title company say, "What in the world are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
before when I lent money.
Wow. I have never heard of that before. That is impressive. Did you get repaid on that?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was. In fact, I lent that eighth position. It was only $10,000. I lent it to somebody I've lent to a bunch of times, and they called me at like 9:30 in the morning, and they had money before close of day. The wire cleared in their account before
Oh,
the day.
okay. Well, wow, that is an exception, I feel like, too.
Oh
This is
yeah.
not common to not to lend that eighth
No,
position
no,
and to
no.
get paid
Don't
back
call.
early and yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not advertising eighth position. If I've done 10 deals with you, then maybe I would do it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And let's go back to your very first deal. So the one that you started talking about at the very beginning of this podcast, right? Where someone just called you out of the blue, you're like, not wrong name, wrong number. So can you walk us through what you learned from that transaction that you wish you would have known when you first started doing that?
Oh man, you might be stepping too far back in history because I needed to learn everything.
Yeah.
I would have to just talk about everything you do in a deal. I needed to learn all those things because I did them all wrong. But I'll tell you one thing I did wrong because it was funny how I learned how I did it wrong.
Mm.
Um, I did the deal at a promissory note and at a deed of trust. And by the way, that guy I ended up lending to a bunch of times. He's who called me for eighth. So the
Okay.
dude I did the
Okay.
first position for, amazing guy, absolutely credible to his word, really works hard. He's in the local Salt Lake market. But I'm at another amazing real estate investor's house that since has tragically passed away. Amazing family, amazing guy. I'm at his house for a birthday party. We're playing pool upstairs. We're talking about the deal, and he asked me um, about a couple of the documents, and he mentions a personal guarantee. And I was like, well, "What are you talking about?" And he just looked at me and he said, "Are you kidding me? You didn't get him to sign a personal guarantee?" And I said, "Well, tell me more." Like, what do you mean? I was so clueless on that first transaction. And so back to the people thing, Liz, that you mentioned, it was his influence and talking through things with him that made me realize, okay, I need to adjust that. right? I need a promissory note, I need a personal guarantee, and I need a recorded deed of trust or mortgage or trust deed or whatever it's called in the state. But then over time, I know you didn't ask this and I shouldn't talk so much, but over time, each of those documents evolved too,
Mm,
right? So I first started using promissory notes that, say, the local title company had a template for, their attorney had. I have some promissory notes that are a single page. The promissory note I use now is like 14 pages long, right? If they didn't make their payment on their first position loan and show it to me every month, then they're officially in default on their loan and I can start pursuing it as default. In fact, if they don't send me a video update every month, they're in default on their loan. There's a
hmm
bunch of things we've added in as a second position, knowing we're in that like uncomfortable space in the capital stack, that we've added into our documents and wording we've added in and things we've adjusted to make sure we have as much protection as we possibly can and that we're as clear as possible,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. And I assume you did this because of experience, right? That you're like, hey, maybe this situation wasn't addressed for this loan and you maybe got burned. I hope I'm assuming because we all have at some point, and we've learned from our lessons, and so it's nice to incorporate, of course, those learnings into future documentation and such. And I hate to harp on this, but it just goes back to the point of making sure you're working with someone who
Mhm.
understands the full process. And a lot of times, I think people are blindsided to the potential implications or consequences of not having their ducks in order, right? Especially when you're lending in second position, because so many people may see or be intrigued by that higher rate of return, but you really got to be careful. And I think
Oh
you can
yeah. Oh yeah.
definitely speak to all of that based on your experience.
Yeah, that is great. One thing I try as hard as possible now to do is not see the rate of return,
Hmm.
right? So that you can try not to be emotionally ever influenced in the underwriting process by knowing what it pays.
Yeah.
Just on that learning thing, I would say, and this is specific maybe to the little niche, corner that I'm in, but I would recommend anybody out there that says, "Hey, I'm gonna be a gator lender." There's that community out there. I'm gonna do some lending as whatever on the side of my W-2 for a while. I got this template from this famous person or that famous person or whatever, and I'm just gonna use that. I would recommend all of them. Call somebody that's done, you know, at least 10, 30, 50 deals. Call somebody that's done this a couple of times and ask them to walk through what they use.
Hmm.
Not saying the thing you got is wrong, but man, there's a lot of value in comparing two contracts and
Oh,
talking through it. It
absolutely.
is an exercise worth doing. I do that still. I'll talk to people that I work with. I say still like I'm super experienced. I don't mean it that way, but even after evolving ours, I'll talk to people and say, "Hey, what do you do for this? What do you do for that?" And I continually implement really cool wording that somebody else figured out because they had a deal that did something. I haven't even had that experience. No reason to have the pain to learn the lesson, right?
Right, right.
Um, so I mean, I'm willing to do that. If anybody wants to talk to somebody that lends or somebody that deals in a fund or somebody that deals in debt recovery because they're doing one of those things and they say, "I just want to talk to a half idiot and hear what their experience is," I'd be happy to do it. We will sometimes lend with brand new lenders. They bring a deal and we'll go through the whole process. We'll run it for them. Sometimes we fund it, sometimes they have the money so that they can see it because there's so much in just engaging with another person in the learning experience, right? At least for
Yeah.
me, there is. And I think
Oh,
it's true for a lot of people.
it's the biggest thing for me, right? Not only am I super visual, but I need to actually be doing it. It's like when you
Mm-mm.
start a job on day one and they show you everything, but you like don't actually do it, and you come back the second day and you're like, ah, I don't know how to do anything. That's exactly how I am. So I
Me too.
appreciate
Me
you
too.
saying that you are able to do that. So thank you. I hope that people take you up on your offer.
Yeah.
I did have another question on this line of thoughts here. Is there anything more recently? Because you talked about how you've added in additional steps for your documentation, like, hey, send me a video or do something else that's needed. That's now 14 pages. Are there any other, like, sorry, I hate this word, nugget of information that is like new that you're like, hey, we've started adding this in. It's made such a big difference, like ballpark change.
Hmm.
And it's okay if there's not, but I just wanted to see.
There's a big thing in our process, but not in our contracts. So maybe the biggest learning I've had in the last year is that what I think is nice is both not necessarily nice, it's not helping, and it hurts. Being when somebody's late on a deal, especially if they haven't called before and negotiated a different plan or something, but they're late. And I'm thinking I'm being nice by being patient with them. All I'm doing is making it worse for everybody, me, my investors, and even them in many cases. Because what almost always happens is them being late and me letting them be even later and later means their holding costs, their late fees and stuff have ruined a deal. It's taken the deal beyond repair. And now they're in a really difficult position now because even if they did get foreclosed on or anything, it still can't pay their bills because it went too far. So the learning I've had, and this is probably part of the reason why now I have a business. I'm, by the way, a minority shareholder. So somebody else has a business I participate with them on in debt recovery is that I turn it over almost immediately.
Mhm.
I turn it over and I let somebody that does that for a living have that call, start that process, engage them on payment plans, or push that where it needs to go if that's right. Somebody that knows really what they're doing instead of me pretending I know that side. I'm good with lending, I'm good with underwriting, I'm good with pricing and that side, and I just accepted I'm not a pro at a deal that's gone beyond its duration and
Mhm.
managing that. So my biggest learning is cut it out. Turn it over. You're not being nice. You're screwing it up for everybody. And it's kind of embarrassing to say, but that's what I did for a long time.
I don't think that's embarrassing at all. I think it's a learning that we probably all have to go through, both in the knowing what you're good at yourself and also the piece about being nice. Because we had a very similar situation with a tenant actually, who was becoming behind late on their rent, and this is a first tenant that we inherited that we had renewed her lease and just she started getting behind after that, and it just snowballed out of control to where she was multiple months behind. She had dates where she was going to get caught up, all these things. But the fact that we let it go on for so long, it ended up having to end in an eviction, which isn't a good situation for anybody. And it's the exact same sort of scenario that you're discussing, but just from a tenant side, a tenant landlord versus like a lender borrower scenario. And I totally understand that. I learned so much from that experience myself, because I know that like I'm never going to be nice like that again, right? And not that I don't have compassion, but I think that it was partly my fault for letting it get that far, right? And had I just said no, this is the deadline, you're going to need to make other arrangements if you can't, start moving in this direction, she wouldn't have been as far in the hole and maybe could have made better moves at that point in time. So man, that hits home for me, definitely.
That's
Uh,
a great example. Yeah.
yeah. So I know you made this transition, right? From being W-2 employed and now over to being self-employed. Talk to me about habits or routines that you've developed to stay productive and on your goals. Because I know these are very different ways of getting your stuff done every day. So what are you doing differently now?
Yeah. That has been a real learning journey for me that I was not deliberate about. I didn't realize how much I had to change when I made this change. I had pretty explicit goals on what I wanted to do in my W 2 career. And I had patterns that I chose to live by and sacrifices I chose to make. Right. There are a lot of people will very much disagree what I'm going to say next, but there were more weeks than I can count that I didn't see my kids awake from Monday to Friday. I left in the morning before anybody in my house was awake. I came home at night when only my wife was still waiting up. Usually, in fact, during some years in one role in Japan, she would call me at 11 o'clock to remind me that I have 20 minutes to get on the last train, or I'm walking because she's not, she'd say, you're not paying for a cab all the way home. So get on the train, start freaking walking, By the way, it's like a 4-hour walk where we lived. So that wasn't a necessary, a real option. I was good with those sacrifices, right? My wife and I had decided certain things and we carried different weights. And I was good with the pattern I was in, the work that I was willing to give, the sacrifices I was willing to make. We also, with our kids, traveled all over the world all the time and had, our short blips of together were us like kind of overdosing, a little bit. And that was fun. When I moved into the entrepreneurial space, I didn't have that same easy structure. I didn't have a place to go to at 5 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? I didn't have stuff. And so that was one of the first things that was hard for me. So the habits that I work on today and try to structure is that I have a moment in the morning. I refer to it, even on my calendar, as first things first. And there are certain things I want to do first thing in the morning, right? I'll tell you what they are. Nobody needs to follow mine because these are my little personal things, but I read the scriptures. I write in a journal. I have something else that I read through that's a little bit motivational, reminds me of goals. And then I say a prayer and then I plan my day. And to me, that's how I make sure my day's structured right. Each week I do a planning session, but every morning I do that and I go through it. Lately, one of my habits is also going out with my dog Odin because he mostly comes over and leans his head on my hand on my mouse and doesn't allow me to work unless I do something with him. And then what I'm trying to structure lately, sorry for being so long-winded on every question. What I'm trying to structure lately is I found I can't end a day. I never feel like I've finished a day. There's so much left to do. There's so much that I'm frustrated I haven't completed, that there is no point in the day that I say, nailed it. That was a good day. And so I'll find myself at 2 o'clock in the morning still working. And then all you do is not sleep very much and you just hurt the next day, right? And so what I'm trying to do now is I have a point in the evening where I try to run an end of day routine. I my call it my close of day. And in my close of day, I go through that day and I deliberately make myself write down one thing I'm thankful for. What went well today? Like what worked? One thing. I'm not going to write a list. I'm just going to say, hey, that was good. And let myself accept something went well because I'm the personality that only wants to fix. If something went well, I don't care. I want to see what didn't go well, right? So I need to remind myself what went well. What blessings did I enjoy today? Let's close the day, move on to the next thing. I'll be back. And that to me I'm still trying to get better at it. That to me is really one of the things that I find to be very powerful the more consistent I can be at it. Opening my day and closing, especially properly.
Yeah,
More than
we
you
asked
want
this
to hear.
question on every podcast, and I actually haven't heard that answer before at the close of day. And I think that is such a great concept because I know firsthand, growing up with like entrepreneurs around me, are so right. I think so many of us want to work and work and work, and you just feel that internal drive to just keep going, right? And nothing it really ever shuts down because there's always something to work on. And so it'd be like 10 p.m., 11 p.m., email, like, no, like just stop. Like you have to shut it down, right? So I think that's very intentional and smart for you to do that. And then of course to end it with gratification, I think it just sets a good precedence for the next day. So I think that's great. And I honestly should implement that. So that is a great piece of advice. What I did want to ask next is I know we talked about your different pieces of businesses and such and your involvement. What are you looking for now? If people want to work with you or lend money, what are you looking for exactly? So they can say, hey, yeah, this is something that I'm interested in. I want to get in contact with Paul.
Yeah. So if I can kind of go back and tell you and remind everybody of what we do, Pinecone Capital is our general partner to our fund. Real Quick Funds is our lending business that fund funds so it can lend and share money. And then North Peak Recovery is the recovery business. Each one of those, we're always looking for a few things. Always looking for accredited investors that want to share in our gains in the fund. Always looking for new transactional deals, new partners that we can do multiple deals with. We want relationships in the lending business. I prefer to have relationships that somebody can call me in the morning and get funded at night. I don't mind going above and beyond to do that rather than one-offs all the time with new people. So, but you have to start with a one-off with new people. So we're always looking for new, especially transactional lenders. And on the third one, this is going to sound a little bit corny, but we're looking for people to help. There's so many lenders out there that I think are embarrassed to ask for help, right? They screwed up something. They know they screwed up something. Freak, I've done that so many times. I couldn't count how many deals I've done something dumb on, right? They screwed up something and it actually hit them. It actually kicked them in the butt, right? The deal didn't work out. They didn't get lucky like so many of us have so many times. And then they're embarrassed, right? They don't like want to call, hey, Liz, do you know anybody that can help me because I'm an idiot? That's how they feel. And we would love for referrals on those people. Bring them over, let them know there's somebody they can have a free consult with, figure out the best plan forward for that. You don't have to use the business, it's free. You have a guy that knows really well what he's doing, how to help. Get that free advice. Just come get free advice. So please, if you know anybody that lends, check with them and see if they don't have a bad deal that stresses them out every night and they never talk about it.
Yeah.
And send them to North Peak Recovery
Yeah.
and get
Check
them
in on your
help.
lending friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel. It sounds really weird, but I almost feel like it's kind of like an emotional challenge that any of us humans have, right? Because we hide it. We want to like pretend it doesn't exist, right? Then we get mad at ourselves and whoever, and we blame somebody. Like we go through all the emotions, but in the end, we're still kind of shameful, right? Or not shameful. We feel shame about like doing something dumb with a bunch of money, and you don't really want to like brag to your friends. Hey, you know what stupid thing I did with $120,000? You know what I mean? So we're having a hard time. Not, I wouldn't say we're having a hard time, but I think there's a pent up amount of people that we would love to be able to just help get advice to take the next step and stop like pretending that's going to get better if you ignore it. It won't get better. It's just going to keep stressing you out. So
Yeah.
sorry for a little diatribe on the recovery, but that
Okay.
one feels like we can actually take stress off of people's lives in a meaningful way. We just need their friends to,
Let them know
don't
you
don't
exist.
let your friends drive drunk kind of thing. Don't let your friends keep bad debt. you know?
Like that. Yeah. No, and we'll have to have Kiefer on the podcast too. This is great.
Oh yeah, Kiefer's
Reminder to do
awesome.
that. Yes. After having Becca, that would be like the perfect full
Yeah, the
360 for
power couple right there. Yeah.
I know. So we've talked so much about money and you've been all over the place. So this question might not even apply to you, but just wondering if you have any upcoming bucket list travel destinations or anything on your list that you're hoping to accomplish, just thinking about more of a lifestyle aspect versus just about the money.
I don't have anything upcoming that I would call bucket list. Um, I have a few bits of travel coming up, and I'll go pick up a son from his volunteer mission in Sapporo, Japan. And Japan's a second home, and I couldn't be anywhere on earth that I'm more happy than in Japan, especially up in Hokkaido, the salt shio ramen. Oh, man, it's to kill for, not to die for. I kill the person in front of me in line for that. Um, but the bucket list location that I still haven't been to, and I can't believe I haven't, that I really want to go to is I want to hike Machu Picchu.
Oh, nice.
I can't believe like I've wanted to go there so long and I've just never like done it. And the other bucket list that I've been to the country many, many times and never done is I want to walk from the Galilee to Jerusalem through Samaria.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Wow.
a personal thing, but I want to do that walk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've just never been able to like make it happen, you know? So
Yeah. And there's a lot of timing involved in that too, with all the conflict that's sometimes
yeah, sometimes
going
going on. The
on.
world is such an amazing place. There's so many cool places, so many amazing people. Like, it's just endless in cool, people and places that you could probably just sit here and like for hours just keep adding to the list, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thankful we've been able to see a few of them and experience a couple of things. It's a blessing.
I love that. Well, how can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you or do deals with you going forward? Have you lend or help lend money to you or have a deal that they need funds lent on? How do they get in touch?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Most of my social media is Paul Brown Funds with underscores as spaces. So Paul_Brown_funds, YouTube, Instagram, stuff like that. And then our website for the lending business is realquickfunds.com. That has a lot of our contact information. It's easy to set up a meeting or whatever. Yeah. Happy to help with anything we can, if we can. Yeah.
Perfect. And I'm sure we'll have people that want to reach out to you and learn more and work with you and all the things. So thanks so much for that. And
Thank
with
you.
that, thank you everyone for watching this week's episode of From Corporate to Cashflow. We will catch you next week. Hey, it's Andrea. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, I'd love it if you hit subscribe. Thanks so much.